We're back.
We are back.
Another edition of Launch Radio with your favorite hosts,
Geoff
and Kira.
We are, having fun as always. It is episode 28 now.
Yes.
Wow.
I know. We're going to do 2 more before the end of the year. And then it's going to be 2020.
2020.
I'm actually kind of excited for 2020. It's like one, it'll either be like a throwback to the roaring 20s. Oh, that's so hard to say. There's way too many R's there. Or it's going to be like futuristic 2020.
Like
flying cars.
And I guess that's what's cool about the future is we don't know. Is it going to echo the past of the roaring 20s? Is history repeat? Or do we get to see the cool tech stuff? What's coming? What's your prediction, Kira?
For 2020 or in the next 5?
In the next 5 or 10 in the 20s. What's your 20s prediction?
Oh, 20s? Oh, yeah. Boy. Right, because then we'd be in the 2040, right?
2030.
Or 2030.
Yeah.
I'm so smart with math.
It's the weekend. We're having fun around here.
Yes. 10 years. I think Google is on the downhill trend to goodbyeville. I think it's slowly but surely taking its decline into the graveyard. I don't know if it'll be done in I think in 10 years we will have something different than Google. Let's put it that way.
Really?
Yeah. I think there's too much. I think there's too many issues going on internally, and I don't think they are. I think that's going to be the downfall of the company. And I think 2020 and beyond is when other companies are going to rise up and push. So, Larry and Sergey are now out. They didn't really want to do it anymore anyways, to be honest. They don't want to be in charge of that beast anymore. And then I think we're going to see a lot more technology. I think the Google Homes are going to do things.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're going to see more VR in a lot of different aspects. I know VR has always been that thing that everyone talks about at CES that hasn't come to fruition. But I actually feel like that's going to be the next thing. Is like someone's going to figure out the VR stuff.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting, and it brings us to the topic today, which is VR.
Whoa! What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years?
What do I think is happening in the next?
Do you think flying cars?
I think that no, I don't think flying cars. I think that flying cars are a ways away, if ever. They'll probably eventually come, but we may have other modes of transportation outside of cars that we won't need by the time
Beam me up, Scotty.
Beam me up, Scotty. I mean, it could be anything. I don't know that it's going to be flying cars. I think that the future. I think that the 20s, as you said, I do think virtual reality is going to come on. As far as Google, I don't know. I mean, it depends what branch of Google. I feel like Google. They're a search engine, and then they do all sorts of different things. There's what is there? Google Drive, and you have Google, all sorts of factions within Google. So I don't know that I see them falling apart. I think that they could change what their function is, I guess you could say.
So focus-wise, because I think right now they're super widespread and they're really hyper-focused on AI and algorithm work. And I think a lot of the future pertain. I think it really depends on what the political atmosphere looks like.
Yeah.
If the government wants to take more of control over the internet and these types of emerging technologies, I think we're going to see a little bit more of a tightening of the screws. It's not going to be so free willy to everything.
Yeah, I do think. I think that is a factor. I think the politics of it are a big factor. And I think that how much control how aware people are of, these companies' stronghold on the public exists,
Right.
And I think the debate about whether we want these companies controlling everything or whether we want the government controlling everything
Right.
is going to become a big
Hot topic.
even more than it is now, if people can believe that. So, I do think that that's going to be a lot of the 20s, is figuring out how to balance tech, specifically social media tech, with living and life and opinions and politics and day-to-day everything.
How do you share information without being blocked?
Right.
And how do you get free speech back again?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people that have conspiracy theories, that their accounts are blocked because they're just anti-vaccinators or whoever they are.
Mm-hmm.
The Facebooks and the Instagrams of the world are blocking their voice.
Correct. So I think in many ways that the roaring 20s are going to roar again, perhaps.
How do you say roar so well? It's so hard for me.
Roar.
Roar.
Roar. Roar.
Roar.
When I was 6, I had speech class because I couldn't say
the R's. My sister couldn't say the R's.
I couldn't say R. I said like whoa.
That's what she did. She did W's.
Like a shark. I said like sock.
Oh,
Shark
that's adorable.
Was sock. How would you get the sock? So they taught me how to say
really
R
cute.
really well. Yeah, like really well.
So because I didn't take speech classes.
Yeah, so speech class.
It's hard for me. It hurts my mouth to say it. Roar.
I mean, maybe you could get a virtual reality speech class. And
it's interesting on that topic. I was just reading that they actually have virtual reality programs that they give to kids to help them through vaccinations.
Wow.
Because, if you think about it, everything's visual. And the minute you're in a doctor's office and you're in, everything starts to get scary. You see the needle.
Right.
You put these goggles on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wish I had that as a kid. We're talking up until about 4 years ago. They would have to hold me down and I'm screaming.
Wow.
To get injections.
So what do? They take the goggles in the doctor's office, the kid, like what's in the goggles?
It's like some fun game. So what it's doing is taking your brain off of your current environment. So it's like, hey, play a game, just pull your attention away from the scary into something fun and like rainbows and cupcakes.
So it's like we're going to drug you while you're
getting drugged.
The roaring 20s are going to be drugs for drugs, like you get drugged to get drugged. Wow.
Is that crazy?
I mean, that's crazy.
So at some point, though, like, it's a good thing. I mean, my God, how many parents are like, I don't want to watch my kid scream and get upset,
Mm-hmm.
But then are you setting up your kid to not be able to experience pain?
I mean, I think that's, I think that is a...
And then when you take the goggles off,
yeah, and when you take the goggles off, then what? And not only, but that's this is coming in a variety of realms. It's not just coming in the vaccine world, obviously medical world.
Right.
It's really going to change in all worlds. Like it's going to change everything if it happens in the way that people think it could potentially happen. And I think so your vaccine example is such a good example of what's potentially to come. Like when people are in, I don't know, they give people morphine when they're in surgery and then they just put some goggles on them and how's that going to work? Because what do they do now? When you go in for surgery, you go under, right? You go under
anesthesia. General anesthesia.
But if they can totally get rid of pain now while you're having surgery, do they need to put you under? They put you under so you don't have a heart attack from the trauma that people are cutting into you.
Yeah, but I wonder if
right?
VR actually can bring your attention away from the pain sensory in your brain going off.
That's getting pretty advanced. Like
I
where you
mean-
actually don't need morphine either.
Because whatever you're watching visually takes you the mind off the pain. Well, if you think about it, those like Buddhist monks that like light themselves on fire while they're
They do.
meditating.
Yeah.
They sit there meditating while they're lit on fire.
One thing I thought from a young age is that, I would probably never light myself on fire while I was meditating. Like it was probably one thing that I thought,
I mean, that's a pretty good goal to have, I feel like.
Yeah.
Have you achieved that goal thus far in your life?
I haven't. It was something that I didn't think I would ever be able to do, and I still think it's probably something I would never be able to do. I don't really necessarily think it's a goal. I think it was something like, that's something I can't imagine myself ever doing. But to each their own.
Well, thankfully, you're not in Thailand. You don't have to
Light myself on fire.
Light yourself on fire.
Do they have classes for that in LA?
I think it's called
Does anybody
trans.
We have a live studio audience now.
Does anybody out there do anything with lighting yourself on fire
While you meditate? Yeah. Anyway.
Actually, it's not such a bad idea. Maybe we should get a live audience.
We're going to get a live audience. Right now, we just have 2 dogs and a cat.
They're
They're all sitting beyond the camera. Very attuned. Oh, one of them's asleep.
He's enjoying everything that we're talking about.
Thoroughly.
Actually, talking about animals with VR, did you see the article that I had sent you when in Russia? So get this, in Russia, they are putting VR goggles on cows.
VR goggles on cows. So I saw this article and I was just like taken aback.
It's unbelievable. So what they're doing is in the VR, they're hoping that it brings down the anxiety that cows have, improves what their environment looks like. So then they produce better milk. And actually, it's working.
So you put it on the animals and the animals see different things.
Correct. A happier environment. So you could be a pig in like the worst animal cruelty farm, but if they have goggles on, they won't know.
And that's just like, so the pigs are going into the slaughterhouse and they just put goggles on them so they think they're going.
So then the meat tastes, it's not so shocked.
Wow.
It's a little scary. I mean, the pig one I just made up, but the cow one, they are doing the cow one.
I mean, that's pretty amazing that you can do that. And what would it bring? And I saw, Kira sent me this article over Thanksgiving, and it was stunning. But it made me wonder, like, are we going to be able to train animals using virtual reality? Are they going to? Are there all sorts of things we'll be able to do? Like a dog learns a trick with the virtual reality headset. Like,
well, I mean, you could. My concern is that I think with the advent of VR, there's always going to be the negative side to anything, right? One, does it make it so that you just don't experience the world anymore? 2, why even take the goggles off? And then 3, what happens if the whole world is imploding and you're like, well, never mind, put my goggles on.
I mean, I feel like, I feel like there's all sorts of possibilities of, what could happen once you put them on, because you don't know what's happening in the outside world. I think that's what you're saying, right? It's like,
right. So then you could let the world, correct. The world could be an absolute shit show of trash, and the world's collapsing, and you're like,
I'm living in my little VR world and it's amazing.
I mean, for all we know, Kira, we could be in a virtual reality right now and we just don't know it. I mean, we humans, all of us, could be in a virtual reality and we just don't know it because those future humans are so advanced and we've just plugged ourselves in. Maybe we put ourselves in a virtual reality and we forgot.
So how do we take the goggles off?
That's the big question.
Do you think that?
I just took Kira into like planet mind, blown.
I
in
hate
like a
when he
matter of
does that.
seconds. I like to like throw in the like, oh, now everybody's got to think.
Dun, dun, dun. You have to use your brain, Kira.
I love the dun, dun, dun. Just mid podcast, we have a lot of fun doing that right here. So, do I think it could?
Do you think we actually have goggles on?
I think it's a possibility, for sure. I think it's almost
more of a possibility than not.
Getting to be a even likely possibility, because it's the same as stimulation theory, which we've done a couple podcasts about now. You can see those on our page. But I think that the stimulation theory talks about how the possibility with technology advancing so quickly, like in the 80s we had Pong, and now look, we've got like virtual reality coming on, we've got all this internet and stuff. Like, if that keeps advancing the way it's advanced since the 80s, in 100 years from now, we will be able to create realities that are indistinguishable from the reality we're in right now.
Is that disconcerting, though?
I mean...
What is reality at that point? What can you trust that's even real?
Well, right. What can we trust now that's even real?
I mean, to me, I enter the world of VR with caution, in the sense that I feel like, here's an example. I used to be a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
what type of gamer? You're like a video game?
Yeah,
like...
I was a gamer.
Wow.
And I played not first shooter, but it's called RPG, so role playing game.
Mm-hmm.
Skyrim, Fable, all of them.
Mm.
And you're like, I don't know what those are, but they sound, yeah.
Does anybody know Skyrim?
Everybody does. It's Elder Scrolls.
People in the audience. Yeah, people in the audience are raising their hands. Okay, so they must know more than.
Assassin's Creed. Have you heard Assassin's Creed?
Anyone? I don't even know that show that everybody. What's the Dungeons and Dragons show that everyone watches?
It's not a show.
Or the
Game of Thrones.
Yes, I don't even know that. I'm not good with the.
That ended the season. That was the season finale, or the series finale.
I get confused within 30 seconds when I try to watch Game of Thrones. I can't last a minute.
You're like, what is going on? There's a dragon.
I'm way distracted.
There's some hot women who are.
Well, that's fun.
Coming out of fire, and now they're dragon people. Okay. So, anyways, I was a gamer.
Jinx, you were a gamer. Go ahead.
And I would play it 24 hours a day. You get really, really sucked into it.
Into the okay, and so
then VR, why would you go out and do anything or see anybody? You become a total hermit crab. And we've talked about this before, but like, when can you actually take the goggles off? Because your real reality sucks, actually. And when you put the goggles on, it's actually amazing. So like, why even take them off?
So is that a good thing? Why even take them off? Or
well, what's your answer?
My personal opinion on it is, if it was a fun world with the goggles on, leave the goggles on.
Yeah, but aren't you concerned about the world of like, we'll be in our like la la land of VR, and the world's just like coming to a screeching halt around us, the real world.
But the VR is your world.
No, that's the made up world.
But to your brain, it's still the world.
Correct. So then if you die in the real world, how do you die?
If you die in the real world, then you would just die in the virtual reality.
Correct. So then we should probably take the goggles off sometimes and make sure that the world is still functioning.
That's probably true.
Just agree, Geoff. Jeez.
So if we all have the goggles on right now, then we should take the goggles off so that the world can function better.
What?
See, Kira, you're getting to my point. And now you all know my point, because brother rules.
How long has that been in your brain? Like the entire podcast, where you're like, I got something good for her. I'm about to throw it down.
I have like a secret list of things that I throw down that I have like saved up.
So you pulled out today that one. That's actually a very interesting one.
Pulled that one out today.
If my VR goggles are on, can we make it less gloomy and dark?
Well, that's how you can test.
So if I take the goggles off, will it actually be a better reality than the VR that I have on? Oh, who did the throwdown?
1-to-1 audience? Was it an even point for each? Oh, they're all pointing at me. I mean, what can you say?
No, that's the cat swatting at you.
Those cats. Anyways,
what's going on with VR and healthcare and all of that? Like, we talked about the vaccinations.
let's have a look, shall we? So VR and healthcare, there's a lot happening. Well, VR and healthcare, there's basically been talk. I mean, I looked at some articles online, as did Kira. We researched this, and there was one that we came across where it talked about, first of all, I feel, and we mentioned this earlier, where surgery, they could start, doctors who are training to be surgeons could use instead of actual bodies, which it's not like they trained on. Do surgeons train on
cadavers?
That's what it's called?
Yes, that's what dead bodies are called.
Okay,
They're called cadavers.
She's enhancing my vocabulary. I played a dead body in a movie once. That was I was
so in the credits was it Dead Body Man or was it Cadaver?
I don't recall. I think it was Dead Body, but it was in Paul Thomas Anderson's movie about the one with Joaquin Phoenix. But I had to do this scene where I had to be a dead body on a shelf, and there were like a room full of like 25 of us, and I was in a bag, and they put me in a body bag as a dead body on a shelf.
How the hell did you get that extra part?
It was that Thomas Python book. It was
Joaquin
recent.
Phoenix?
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin. I don't remember, but it was a recent Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and they put me in the body bag, and I had to. I mean, there was hardly any air. I had like a little slot, and I had to lay there. And like the AD would come in and be like, "Is everybody okay?" We'd all be like, "This is my life in the movies." Like that's what I would do.
Glamorous. Everyone move out to Hollywood. Yeah. All your dreams will come true. You get to be a cadaver.
Okay. So anyway, back on topic. The
You're making Hollywood looks so glamorous, Geoff.
Well, if you want to be a dead body in a movie.
I was in a movie with Joaquin Phoenix. What did you do? I was a dead body. I was zipped up and barely could breathe.
I had a little slot, right? I was like...
Where's the union? Can't you be like, excuse me?
Oh, the union. Yeah, that's another story. Separate topic. We got off topic again.
VR. Put the VR glasses on with the union.
Yeah, the union could use some... Anyway, back to the surgeons. Yes.
So they would use VR
when training. When training to be a surgeon, they would use VR technology, and it instead of the actual cadavers, and it would help them. So that was one thing it brought up. It also brought up physical therapy and being able to use, I guess, VR goggles to learn different exercises and such.
That's kind of cool.
Like, yeah, probably personal trainers as well. You could use it for that. They kind of already got that, I think.
I want to put them on my dog, like you said, and train new tricks. Train them new tricks.
Yeah, I think the dogs.
That'd be kind of rad.
And cats too.
When's that coming out? Maybe we'll see it at the next CES next year. CES is always like the what's happening, the newest new. This year was like a TV that was as thin as paper, and it's like massive, and it has the best quality ever. It's like 4K, and it's super thin.
Just a flat screen.
Yeah, but I'm like, come on, guys, where's the VR goggles for my dog?
Yeah. I mean, they need to hurry up with the VR goggles.
They need to hurry up with VR. I was in the advertising world for too long. And VR was always the thing that was on proposals and what they call RFPs. And it's request for proposal. And agencies send it to their publishers and say, hey, what do you got for us? What cool stuff do you have for us for our upfronts or, for fall sales event or whatever it is? And it was always like, include things like cool things like VR, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my God, with the VR, it's not here yet.
It just, it sounds cool to see. It sounds cool to say VR. I think that's why they do it. Because it's
because the client wants it. Like, so, there's clients that want to, Toyota tried VR.
Yeah.
And you could like sit inside a car and do a virtual like test drive.
Mm-hmm.
But then it bombed miserably because it was like, people want to actually sit in the car and feel the thing. A VR is not going to replace actually feeling it.
Are you sure?
It bombed when they did it.
Really?
Yeah, it did terrible. And they probably spent like a ridiculous amount of money. And they should have bought more advertising from me. But I digress.
So they have some technological
there's technology out there, but
before it's at that point. So anyway, that's interesting. The other one I brought up was education, which is using VR for taking courses. You feel like you're in a virtual classroom. I think that's already going on as well, though.
So that means you can go, Google does that, where you can actually go to the Eiffel Tower right now.
You can go on field trips. Yep, you can take virtual
Do you
field
think
trips.
Do you think that's a good replacement for, I mean, it's good for like people that can't afford it, can't go, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing for like inner city kid, low income type of, school districts and stuff. But that population aside, is it a good substitute for actually smelling what the Sistine Chapel smells like and feels like, and experience what the energy? You can't feel that energy in a technology with freaking glasses on.
Well, we live in a
sensory
world. So what is VR doing? It's giving us the visual sensory. So there would have to be a VR technology that gives us it's also giving us the audio, I guess, visual and audio. We're missing the touch and we're missing the smell.
Energy. Beings, when you're next to someone,
there's
an energy. No, you're not touching them.
The energy.
Me and you sitting here giving off each other energy.
Okay, so if you and I were sitting here and we were looking at each other in the headset,
it would be a different connection.
Energy? It would be?
Yeah. Human beings having like an aura. Have you ever heard like people can see people's aura? It's like some people can see it, some people don't. Most people don't.
Yeah.
But there's an energy we're all made up of atoms and molecules.
Yeah.
So of course, when we're in the same room, there's an energy. You can feel the heat coming off your hand. Like you feel that.
What is the energy? Yeah,
if you do, I'm not touching myself. Both hands are like 2 inches apart, but I feel that
in close quarters.
Correct. So that's an energy field that we're all in. Yeah. So if you just have glasses on, you're not next to people.
Is the person still in your field?
I don't think you can get the same experience as you could. Now, for people that can't go to these places, these exotic remote places, it makes sense. But I worry that it's going to be a replacement. We're all going to be stuck in our like rooms and we don't need to go out ever. And we'll just be super siloed hermit crabs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the big mystery is, and it sounds like, Kira's concern is that the real world that we're in now could go extinct with the virtual reality because we're not paying attention to what's happening in the real world because we have the headset.
Well, why care if 83% of mammals are going extinct? When your VR shows beautiful tigers right in front of you.
Well, right. That's the problem.
Who cares if there's global or climate change?
Could you put headsets on all the mammals as well, so that they're plugged in?
Or if you think about it, for human rights activists,
mm-hmm.
you could potentially use VR technology to film in VR, show actually what is going on to gain more empathy and more sympathy for animals in order to push out more rights for animals.
So there it is, working
in a positive,
at the same time, right? So it's hard to say, and that, I mean, there's arguments on both sides about how it helps. I think that And before we get to the conclusion of this, I feel like, other ways education, there's field trips and there's college students being able to hone their skills in the real world. It could take a student and put them in the real world so they get to feel what they're learning in the real world. It lets you go into classrooms. It lets you take field trips. This article also mentioned, shopping. There's virtual shopping, being able to go to different spaces and try on clothes, or try on anything really. Virtual shopping, you'll be able to try on a pair of pants that you don't know if they fit you by virtual shopping, which is...
How is that going to work? You're not actually putting on the real pair of pants.
Well, because if it matches your sizes are plugged into the virtual reality headset.
Yeah, but you'll never feel what the fabric feels like. What if the fabric feels like shit?
So then you try them and it matches exactly what your sizes are. As far as being able to feel the fabric, that's still a technology that us here at VR Central are working on, but it's a slow progress for feeling fabrics, but we're working on that. So that's coming around.
I mean,
we'll keep you posted on that piece. So we don't quite have things worked out, is the bottom line.
I want it perfect before it comes out.
For the feeling of fabrics. The touch sensory stuff, VR is still working on.
Well, it's like the porn stuff that we talked about last week, right?
Well, right. Yeah, we talked about porn last week.
VR porn, but you're not actually touching. You don't actually feel the energy between that person because it's all sensor. It's all just visual. And
that's the other problem, right?
What if you could smell it?
Well, the smell sense is MIA as well. So the smell and the touch are not present. I don't know how I'd be curious to Google that.
King Kong in Universal Studios is VR, and they have smell in that.
Yeah, right.
Like you smell the bananas when Kong is eating and stuff.
The thing is, when you put in the smell, though, it just feels like it's so going back to square one. Like if you're going to put in somebody in a room, like if you're going in the virtual reality to a banana room and, you want the person to see bananas, you put the stat on. But if you wanted to smell bananas, you just have to put a bunch of bananas in the room. And at that point, with that sense, it's like, why wear the headset? You can just smell the bananas. So it's kind of like the smell doesn't work because you're matching what you're already doing with the virtual reality.
Well, at the same time, do you actually need this? You already know what it smells like.
Bananas? Well,
your brain already created that pathway.
Right.
Like, for example, if you meditate looking at an onion and you stare at an onion for like 2 or 3 minutes and you stare at it, you'll actually, and then close your eyes, visualize the onion and the whole thing. You're not right now.
I'm visualizing the onion. I thought we were doing it.
No. I'm just telling you what to do after the podcast. Look at an onion. Look at every orifice of the onion. Close your eyes.
I was actually trying this exercise for those listening, and keep going.
And then you can actually, your mouth starts to salivate.
Salivate. Anyway,
it's not salivate, is it?
Salivate.
Salivate? What did I say?
Salivate. I don't know what she said. He said something. She said something. Anyway. That's a good point about the onion is you can literally, it's been proven that they can, it's like the placebo.
Well, it's your neural pathways have already know,
that's right.
Salivate? No, that's not it.
Salivate. Salivate.
Who needs the speech sessions now?
Right there. Yep, arrow. So
salivate. Oh, I got it.
Salivate.
Yeah, I just did it.
Yeah, say it again.
Salivate.
See? She's got it. Round of applause.
I trained my brain.
They're installing applause signs up above right now. So if you hear the construction in the background, that's what's going on. And the dogs and cat are having
I want to take my VR glasses off now.
So anyway, Kira's taking we're getting ready to take the VR glasses off. So to wrap up, and we certainly have had fun with you guys today here on episode 28. To wrap up, it is interesting regarding virtual reality and what's going to happen as far as the positives and the negatives of it. It's definitely gives some positives, like what you said about everything. Really, you can teach people about animal awareness, but at the same time, you're teaching people about animal awareness while you have the virtual reality headset on. The animals could be dying.
Correct.
So while you're learning about animal awareness, the animals are actually dying.
Correct.
So that's the problem. So that kind of sums it up. So there's positives and negatives to it. So anyway,
I want to hear what everyone else thinks. Like when you watch or listen to the podcast, I want to see comments from people of like, what do you feel VR is going to look like, and how soon do you think it's going to come out? I feel like the promise of VR has been around for like obnoxiously long now, and it hasn't really delivered. So like, to the audience, what do you think when it comes to VR? Is it going to be a game changer for the positive/negative? Should cows continue to wear goggles so that we get better tasting milk?
we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what your opinions are on the cows and the virtual reality and everything else. So we'll continue to push this out to them and get lots of opinions and thoughts. And
what's next week's topic?
Next week's topic, I thought what we touched on beforehand was great. Kira and I have these off conversations before we get
Always
on the air.
Usually it's like an hour before.
Like an hour.
And then we're like, let's record.
Yeah. Hit the button now. Hit it. And we hit the button and then it's like off and running. But maybe like the whole, I think discussing the whole drug thing and
the microdosing.
The microdosing and just we get people on drugs, medications. There's Adderall and there's just all these drugs people take, and if they're good or bad, and what her opinions are and what my opinions are, which will be the next, debate, fight, brother, sister, hammering it out. You guys get for your entertainment. So that's what we're thinking for next week. And I think
I like that, the microdosing, and does it make sense to do something that grows out of the ground or something that's laboratory created?
Yeah. We'll discuss. So
happy VR. Hope you guys get VR sets for Christmas.
And here at Launch Radio, we are the future, and the future is Launch Radio. Peace out, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Later.